You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.
Welcome to the Hot Options Report, your premier source for insight into the fast-moving options market. Each day, we'll track down the products that are dominating the options chains and impacting your trading account, from Nvidia to VIX and everything in between. If it's lighting up the options tape, then you'll find it on the Hot Options Report.
All right, everybody, that music means we are back. It is time for another Hot Options Report for Monday, February 2nd, kicking off February here, our first full trading week of the month with some hot options action. Before we get there, make sure you're subscribed to the full network wherever you find your favorite podcast. Otherwise, you're missing out on a dozen other shows out there. And of course, if you want to keep your eyes glued on all the latest data from the world of options, maybe an idea strikes you at 2 a.m., you want to crunch your own numbers, thehotoptionsreport.com is the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires as we dive on into our top 10 for Monday. Was it a banger day out there in the options market today? The answer was it was decent. It was fine. Wasn't lighting the world on fire. Only cost you 544,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today. That gets us to our old pal GameStop. A GameStop rallying today, nearly $2 or 8.25% to close at $25.85. The hot option in GameStop today, listeners, 31,000 of the Feb 26s. So pretty much an at the money call. Average price for these, 60 cents. If you think there's more upside to come in GameStop throughout the rest of earnings season, maybe you like a little bit of a nibble here for GameStop for 60 cents. Either way, that's your number 10 spot. Let's keep climbing to number 9. This is a stock that has not been climbing for some time. This is Robinhood selling off below $90 today, or $9.57 to close $89.91. Just an absolute drubbing for Robinhood. Down about 22% year to date, down over 40% if you go back to their all-time high, which I believe was back around 152 in October. So it's been quite the downside run here for Robinhood, putting up 556,000 contracts. We're the number 9 spot out there today. The hot option in Hoodland, 20,000 of the 95s. Average price for these, $1.27. And these are expiring on Friday, so they're not even going through earnings. I do believe earnings are next week. So kind of a bit of a nibble to the upside here. I'm not giving these away. $1.27 for Robinhood 95s expiring on Friday. You like those, listeners, or would you be selling the heck out of those? Hit us up. Let us know as we keep climbing to number 8, listeners. Another name that wasn't climbing today. This is Meta, selling off $10.09 to close at $706.41, putting up 558,000 contracts for the number 8 spot out there today. This is our first print on the show, listeners, of the expiring Monday, Wednesday, and Friday weeklies. Now, we've been talking about Friday expirations forever. Starting this week, we have options expiring today. So you could have done the 0-day dance in Meta today, and it looks like that's exactly what people did. The hot option out there, 18,000 of the 710s. Again, expiring today. Average price for these, $2.05. Obviously, where we went out in the stock, right around 706, you'd much rather be a seller of these. And it looks like that's what people did, hitting the bid on these to the tune of $2.05. So congrats to you. You pocketed all of that money, and congrats to all of us here for kicking off a new era in now soon to be 0-day single name equity options trading. Going to be an interesting time, listeners. I have a feeling this is not the last time we're going to be talking about 0-day trades in some of these big names. As we keep climbing to number 7, listeners, this is Intel. Intel's been on a interesting run, I think, to put it mildly, out there of late. Popping again today, $2.32, or almost exactly 5%. to close at $48.79 today, putting up 584,000 contracts for the number 7 spot out there in our countdown. The hot option in Intel land today, almost 40,000 of the 50 calls. We're back to that strike, listeners. Average price for these, $1.02. People were whiffing on these in the past couple of weeks, but they're coming back this week. Maybe we will break through the 50 handle this week, listeners. Maybe you like these for $1.02, or perhaps you're hitting the bid all day long. As we keep jumping up our list to number 6, our old pals, the Amazonians, they were jumping today as well, $3.66 to close at $242.96, putting up 652,000 contracts for the number 6 spot out there today. The hot option in the Amazonians, listeners, 56,000 of the 245s. Again, 0-day paper expiring today. Average price for these, 54 cents. You know the drill. If you bought these for 54 cents and rode them through the close, bit of a rough one. If you sold these, you might have had to sweat a little bit, but they ended up working out pretty good. As we keep climbing to the number 5 spot, listeners, this is Microsoft. This name has not been climbing since their earnings. They've been trending pretty much in the other direction. That continued today, off another $6.92. Trading 423.37, listeners, for good old Mr. Softy, putting up 773,000 contracts for the number 5 spot. And the hot option in Mr. Softy today, we're going back to the 0-day well, listeners, 51,000 of the 425s. Average price for these, 78 cents. Same deal. You're going to wish you sold these, and it looks like that's what people did. So if you sold these and rode them through the close, congrats to you. You pocketed 78 cents. Again, listeners, 0-day fun. It's going to be taking over our list pretty soon. You watch as we keep climbing to number 4, listeners. This is Palantir, closing today 147.78, up $1.18. So managing to reverse some of their sell-off. They've been taking a drubbing this year, off about 12% so far year to date, or about 20 handles exactly, gaining $1 of that back today and putting up 858,000 contracts for the number 4 spot out there today. And of course, they are heading into earnings after the bell. Let's see what folks are putting on heading into that announcement. It was the 160s, changing hands 26,000 times for $3.54. You might say 160, that's a bit rich. But it looks like in the after hours, if you bought those, you were looking pretty good. We were right around 160. The stock's still up, though, up to about 158.25, up 10.5 handles. Obviously, you'll have to wait and see how these look on the open. We saw what happened with Apple last week. People had the upside 260s, 265s. The stock didn't open where it was in the after hours. So we'll see if you can maintain this bid or if this is just the first blush. And these 160s are worth a lot less tomorrow as we keep climbing to number 3, listeners. Speaking of the fruit company, here they are at number 3, popping hard today, popping 10.5 bucks or about 4% to close. Pretty much 270, 269.96. So a wild day out there in Apple. I think a lot of people thought this was the move they were going to see after their earnings announcement. Instead, we're seeing it today. So maybe a bit of a delayed reaction. Either way, 1.75 million contracts lighting up the tape in the fruit company today. So one of the hotter days we've seen in Apple outside of earnings in quite some time. And the hot option on a hot day in Apple, 127,000 of the 265s expiring, guess when? Yep, today. So more 0-day fun, listeners. Average price for these, 76 cents. So if you scoop these for 76 cents, you're looking really good right now. These went out worth nearly $5 at the end of the day. We also saw some 0-day action on the 270s, changing hands 113,000 times today. Average price for these, about a dime. For those, you got what you pay for. They went out worthless. But the 265s look like a home run, listeners. Man, 0-day paper for days as we keep climbing to number 2. Was this name also climbing? This is Tesla, listeners. The answer is no. They were selling off another $8.51, or about 2% to close 421.90, putting up 2.18 million contracts for the number 2 spot out there today. And the hot option in Tesla, once again, back to the 0-day fires. It was 109,000 of the 425s. Average price for these, $1.09. Same deal. They got there. The stock got to 427.15. So these were looking pretty good until they weren't. Stock ended up closing, obviously, well below that 425 strike. So if you bought these, you had some moments intraday, but you had to be pretty quick on the trigger finger. If you sold them, had to sweat a little bit, but you ended up pocketing your $1.09, listeners. As we keep climbing to our number one spot, yes, it's Nvidia. They were selling off, kind of going the opposite way of Apple today. Interesting. Selling off $5.52, or about nearly 3%, closing at 185.61. There's some rumblings about their investment in OpenAI, and whenever you say the magical letters of AI in a negative context, the stock's going to sell off, and that's what's happening today in Nvidia, putting up 2.36 million contracts for the number one spot today, and the hot option in Nvidia, nearly 250,000, 240,000 of the 190s expiring. Take a guess when? Yep, today, listeners. Average price for these, 32 cents. These were pretty much at break even. The high of the day was 190.30 until not that long before the end of the session when Nvidia took a bit of a nosedive. So these were looking good until they weren't. They obviously went out worthless. And that's going to do it for your hot options report for Monday, February 2nd. Very much a game changer in the options market today. I think we're going to look back on this day with a historical lens and say a lot of things changed today as people obviously started diving in to the zero DTE phenomenon, but on the single name equity options front. It's probably only a matter of time before we see before we see the Tuesdays and the Thursdays injected into that, and we have a full week of 0-day fun. Have you discovered these 0-day equities yet? Have you jumped into those waters yet, or are they still a little bit too rough, a little bit too scary for you? I'm curious. Hit us up, let us know. And remember, check out our friends over there at thehotoptionsreport.com. You literally can't beat the price, and you sure as heck can't beat the data. Thehotoptionsreport.com. Back again tomorrow with more great content until we're back again after the closing bell. Another episode of the Hot Options Report. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.